Hi, welcome to my channel. My name is Veronica Mphathi, and if you are obsessed with growth and hitting your goals and you are a high achiever that's not afraid of owning that, then this content is definitely for you. I consider you my partner in this growth journey, and today I wanted to discuss with you a very sensitive topic. Most of our topics are sensitive, but I know they're sensitive to those in the back seat, not you guys who are in the front seat. It's about authenticity versus posturing. I don't know if you've heard about posturing. I know authenticity you've probably heard of. Let's just try to break that down. The key things that I'm hoping that you take from today's discussion is, the first one is just the power of authenticity, what being genuine really is and how it can be your greatest asset. I also want you to understand posturing. I know I just dropped the word posturing. What is posturing? How do you recognize that this is actually posturing, and how then it can hinder your growth or your progress in your chosen endeavors? And I also want you to recognize the value or the impact of authenticity in your influence, in your connection with people, and in your growth and leadership, whatever role you want to go into, and just give you a few tips from my humble little experience that you could use to ensure that you walk in authenticity and still own the room without having to posture. So let us understand these two phrases, authenticity and posturing. So authenticity is being true to oneself. It's being true to expressing your unique beliefs, your unique thoughts, your feelings, your true unique feelings. And I like to say unique because for them to be true, even if we think we are alike or we are friends or we are colleagues in the workspace, whatever the story is, there will always be something that's unique to me. Authenticity is being able to be true to those unique feelings, those unique thoughts, and being unique, true to my unique characteristics, expressing my unique characteristics honestly. So that is authenticity. It's the expression of the same. You could be authentic, and this is why I'm emphasizing the word expression. You could be an authentic person in your heart. You're a true person, you're an honest person, you know you. But as soon as you're supposed to start engaging with other people, then you're under pressure to do that which is not true. That which is not truly your thoughts, that which is not truly your feeling or your belief about something. That then steps away from authenticity. When you start expressing or putting on an act or a facade where you appear a bit more knowledgeable or you appear to believe something, usually in the effort to impress others, that is posturing. Posturing is about putting on an act, putting on a facade, overconfidence, where you're trying to impress people around you and, in a sense, trying to dominate those around you, appearing to know more than you know or to believe that which you don't. That is what we call posturing. And the reason I'm bringing these two to you is because in my interaction in the world of business, I see a lot of people who feel pressure to posture when they get into rooms, when we get into meetings, we get into discussions. Somebody just wants to express this facade or to put on an act where we come in and, I don't know if it's been overplayed also by different coaches, business coaches in different platforms, and it's not being applied properly. I have absolutely no idea where it all started, because some people would say fake it until you make it. So it's about the handshake. It's about the, how you look people in the eyes. That has to also be subtle and honest. There is a difference between expressing your confidence, which is more authentic, and putting on a facade in a show really of this excessive confidence, or like I know that which I genuinely don't. So I just wanted us to lay a ground for that and say, I know that you are watching this as somebody who believes you have potential, you are a high achiever, you are a go-getter, you're pushing for the things that you want to achieve. At what point does it move from being authentic confidence to being posturing and trying to be domineering in the room where, they feel you? And what is the harm? What comes with that? And like I said, I see this a lot in many rooms when I'm interacting with people. So it may be that at some point, many people don't even know that they are posturing. So maybe let me give examples of, that can help you recognize posturing in action. Yeah. So the first one that I could give you is, like, overly aggressive body language, where somebody is using, body language that is sort of intimidating. There are people who, when you walk into a room, either you're standing with somebody at a conference and it's supposed to be an interaction and somebody's folding their arms like that, or it's in a room setting and you're seated and you're talking and somebody's crossed their arms and sometimes even cross their legs and be distant from you with their arms crossed, and that body language that is very aggressive and is not welcoming. Or somebody who just sits on the table like that and is trying to dominate you, by the way they sit on the table. Is it necessary? Is it confidence? That is what I mean by posturing. We don't have to be excessive. When you are a powerful individual in a room, we know who is this powerful individual in your room. Your accomplishment, your profile already speaks for you. When you start doing things like this, where people are talking and you're also leaning forward on the table and using your body to dominate others, or folding your arms and it's cold in the room. That is an example of posturing. We have ways that we can express our confidence that people will know when you're in the room that this person is actually very confident, but you did none of the aggressive body language. And then the other example that you could use maybe to try and recognize posturing is name dropping, where you use, you drop the names of influential people to impress the people around you rather than adding value to the conversation at hand, and you are busy dropping names so people can sort of associate you with those big names that you are dropping. I don't know if people don't know that we recognize it. If I'm talking to you and I'm constantly dropping all these big names, and I was with this one and I was with that one, or when I called so and so, or when so and so called me, and when we were in this place with so and so. If it's excessive name dropping and people can see right through it that you're trying to impress them with the name dropping, it could work with other people who are as insecure as maybe yourself, if that's what is you're accustomed to doing. But as soon as you get into rooms with people who really are certain about their achievements and what they stand for in life, that's not going to fly. The name dropping is something that's going to actually take away from you rather than actually make. So you want to focus on things which are adding to the conversation. Excessive name dropping of influential people is posturing. The other one is speaking in jargon. Where you drop these big words in your sentence. You're using complex language that people, using technical terms. You're talking to people in a room and you're constantly dropping words that demonstrate that you are from this technical higher place that other people don't belong. We can see that you're posturing. You want to seem a bit more knowledgeable, where it's unnecessary in communicating what you're trying to get at. Sometimes when we're discussing with my business partners, we like to say, think strategically and communicate like a third grader. Because it's not about whether or not you're able to think at a high level. When you start communicating to people, if you really are a high value individual, you want to bring your language to where it's relevant in the conversation that we're having. But if you're constantly bringing in these heavy words and using heavy jargon, we are seeing right through it that you are trying to impress. You're trying to sound more knowledgeable than you actually are. Like I said, it could work if you are talking to people who are insecure, who are unachieved, etc. But is that where you're trying to go? Are you trying to get to the level where you're impressing everybody who's not going to help you in your growth, who's not going to partner with you in your business, who's not going to work with you in any executive thing that you're trying to do? So we're trying to get ourselves to work and achieve strategic goals. We're not trying to sit here and impress everybody and impress those people who don't even need that impression from us. Oh, they will clap for you and say, whoo, when you speak, you drop photosynthesis in every sentence. But is that what you're trying to do? Is that necessary for your growth? So as soon as you speak in jargon, we already can tell this person is posturing. There's no need for the heavy words in every sentence like that. The other one that you can use to recognize posturing is where somebody is exaggerating their achievements, where one is, overstating their successes, overstating their responsibilities to gain admiration or to gain respect of the people who are listening. We can already pick it up. If you're somebody who is accomplished, we already appreciate your achievements. We already appreciate your profile. We know who we're sitting across the room to. So when you now exaggerate your successes, it's something that it can be very subtle sometimes, but we will immediately pick it up. Even if it's just a 10-minute tea break conversation, there's a way that I can appreciate that the person that I'm talking to is a highly accomplished person, without them having to, every sentence that comes out of their mouth is telling me what their achievements are. Like, we need to ease up on that. We can already pick it up. It's unnecessary. Somebody who's sure about themselves is not going to be dropping their successes every minute that they talk to you. So I don't know what general, example I could use that is sort of universal, where you meet somebody and you're like, this is the award I won, and this is, when I was leading this organization, and then, ease up. We can already see that you're posturing. You don't have to overwhelm the conversation with your achievements. Relax. And so that is what I mean by posturing. Posturing is you're even exaggerating those achievements. Easy. And the last one that I normally, these are my own humble observations. It's where somebody is hiding their insecurities, or at least they think they're hiding their insecurities by pretending to be confident and knowledgeable and domineering in a particular topic, when you can see that you actually are unsure about that topic, and there are people who actually would be knowledgeable and we could learn from them in the room. So it just takes a bit of humility, which I think is something we can talk about later, because then if you don't want to ask questions, you don't want to hear from the people around you, yet you're the one talking and sounding like you got this. When all of us are now hearing that, listen, you are pretending to know a lot in this space and you don't. What's the story? Posturing. This is why I'm saying you can take all this and start, or at least be in the same page with me about this understanding of posturing, because my topic today is actually about authenticity, but I needed to lay the ground about what posturing looks like in action. So I think the question then is, why do people posture? Why do people generally find themselves posturing? I'm trying to get us to the root of this posturing. One is fear of judgment. Usually people feel the pressure, to posture because they are worried about how others are going to perceive them in the room. And people are worried perhaps that others are going to treat them as less than what they are. And they're trying to come out to be, up to par with whoever is in the room, or even above whoever is in the room. So that fear of being judged, one then tends to posture, and they don't even realize that you are posturing. It's not achieving what you're trying to do. It's irritating those who are knowledgeable, who are confident, those who are achieved, who are here to listen to you and engage with you. So the fear that people who are there are going to be judging you, if you have that fear, it's going to then make you do this excessive posturing that is not called for. The other reason why people find themselves posturing is this imposter syndrome, where people feel, I might be caught out for the achievement that people think I have achieved. They may catch me out to not be what the achievement says it is. Where you genuinely have achieved certain things in your life, and you sit here as somebody who has genuinely achieved those things, but you don't feel like you deserve those achievements. So when you step into the room, even while the evidence shows that you worked hard and you achieved these things, your own internal issue about it, where you don't feel like this star that they've called into the room, you now find yourself posturing, excessively making up for that feeling of imposter syndrome. That is a challenge, because then we are also concerned about you in the room. Like, we know this person, they've achieved well, so what is with the act? That act is unnecessary. We don't even know that at the root of it is because even with that achievement or with those achievements that you have on the table, genuine achievements, you still don't feel that you are achieved. So you start acting like an insecure person, even when your achievements warrant that you shouldn't. Now you are here posturing and name dropping and using heavy jargon and things like that. So that imposter syndrome needs to be dealt with at the root. Otherwise, it's going to cause you to come into the room and start posturing. The other one is the actual opposite. The other reason why people posture, at least in my humble opinion, is masking incompetence, where somebody is genuinely incompetent and what we are discussing or what we are doing is something that's way above their skills, their knowledge, their abilities, and they want to mask that. Then they come into the room with an expensive suit. I don't have a problem with expensive suits. I'm trying to build that whole story about what then this person does with the body language and the heavy jargon and the talking over people and wanting to be domineering in the room, where the whole time they're actually masking the incompetence that is behind what is being discussed, and that this is an area that they're not knowledgeable about. Then somebody starts posturing. And this one, unfortunately, is very common, where somebody or people generally, especially as we go higher and higher in our hierarchies in society, you would then realize there are many people who made it there. Some of them don't even know how or why they made it there. They're constantly posturing. Then they don't work on key competencies that can sustain you at that level. Instead of working on those competencies, improving their skills and abilities genuinely, they now start mastering the art of posturing and dominating others and never actually addressing their incompetence. So this the domineering and wanting to sound like you're the most knowledgeable in the room when you actually are not. You are masking incompetence. That is a root cause for posturing. And the other one is social pressure. Where you just generally desire to fit in. You generally desire to stand out when you're in a room. That pressure to be somebody in society can get you posturing and doing all these body, strong handshakes, or somebody's just crushing your fingers and you're like, what is the problem? Can we just ease up? It's okay to have an affirmative handshake, but not where you are crushing people's fingers. That can just relax. This is not a wrestling game. We're in a meeting where we're just about to discuss things that affect other people, growth and things like that. So the excessive action is not necessary, but somebody's feeling social pressure to stand in, to fit in and to stand out when they're here in the room as somebody who is a bit more important than they actually are. So these are the root causes. When you're feeling social pressure to be somebody, then it's going to cause you to get into a room and start posturing. I was just highlighting why I've seen people posturing, or at least the reasons that I've suspected this is probably why this person is posturing. So now I want to flip the page and talk about why authenticity actually always wins, which is just the opposite of posturing, where we're talking about genuinely expressing yourself. And in her book, Brené Brown, which is entitled The Gifts of Imperfection, she spoke about authenticity as the daily practice of letting go of who we think we're supposed to be and embracing who we are. So when you get into a room and people have invited you for something and this is who they expect you to be, or who you feel you're supposed to be in that room, as soon as you start feeling that pressure, remember that social pressure, you're going to come in and start posturing and name dropping and exaggerating your achievements. That is why Brené Brown in her book said authenticity is that daily practice of letting go of that pressure of who you think you're supposed to be and showing up and embracing who you truly are. There's so much, as Veronica, that I would love to achieve. There's so many places I would love to be, but at the moment, this is where I am. I can own where I am. I can own that which I have done to this day, and I'm embracing just where I am. That doesn't negate my ambition for where I'm going next, but the daily practice of just being okay with embracing this Veronica who's in progress today, than to posture and act like I'm already 50 years later, where I know everything, I own everything, I am everything. So I want to delve a little bit bigger into why I'm saying I think authenticity always trumps posturing. The first one is that when you're authentic, it builds trust. People connect generally with genuine emotions, genuine experiences, where they can see that what you are what you're saying, you are being real. You are not putting on a mask. That connection is something you cannot pay for. Even when you're posturing and you're confident or excessively confident, people can tell when it's confidence and when it's posturing, because with authenticity, the stories are genuine. The experiences are genuine. The emotions that you express are genuine. And I'm not saying you should get into a room and start crying or start chopping yourself down like sometimes in our cultures where you're like, I'm nothing, I'm nobody, No, I'm not saying that. There's a difference between confident, authentic confidence and posturing. So when you have this authentic confidence, people can trust you. They can know that they can work with you. And when you start posturing, that's why I was saying it's so dangerous to posture, because when you start posturing in a room with people who you want to partner with for something important, whether you want them to be in your board or you are in the boardroom, or you want them to be your investors or they're already invested, if you start posturing and doing all those things that we discussed earlier, they start seeing right through that, and do you think they would trust you? That's where it just starts eroding the trust. So when you're authentic, people can tell these emotions are real, these experiences are real, these stories are real. This person is okay with bearing it here and still confidently marching forward. That builds trust. In whatever relationship you're looking to build, especially in your growth and high achievement, you want trust. Nothing can be built outside of trust. The other reason I'm thinking that authenticity always wins is because it is a sustainable confidence. Yeah, because when you are posturing, you have to put on an act, put on a facade. When you are authentic, you have accepted who you are. You're working from a place of calm. Yeah. So the truth about these two is, when you're comfortable with who you are, it's something that you can do through and through for years. But when you're posturing, very soon you're going to be exhausted in trying to maintain the posture. And it's always funny when somebody who is posturing with one person and posturing another way with another person, when those two people are now in the room, you find somebody's in trouble because you're posturing one way to your boss and sounding, like this. And then now your subordinates, you were posturing a different way with your subordinates. Now your subordinates and your bosses are both in the room. Now what? When you are posturing to your management as a CEO, your management sees you this way and your board sees you this way. And when the board and the management are both in the room, then who are you? So it gets exhausting when you're posturing, because you're putting on an act, you're putting on a face. So every morning when you go show up in your business or in your executive role, you must put on that facade. You must put on a show. It is exhausting. It will actually cause more burnout than if you were truly, genuinely you. And it drains energy. That's why earlier I was saying, if the posturing becomes your project, it will drain you and it will take up most of your energy to the point where you will have actually none left to work on areas of incompetence, to work on the abilities and the new skills that you must develop, because most of your energy is taken in posturing. And when you posture to people, how are you going to learn? So it means you're actually denying yourself the opportunity to learn. You are going to constantly be posturing to somebody that you could be learning from. That is where our problem is. And then it becomes exhausting to maintain. Before long, we're like, your personality is one way, one day is another way, the other day, because you were posturing. One minute you sound very authentic and you start even dropping scriptures. The other day you are this very pompous, aggressive person who, your handshake is crushing our fingers. We're like, who is this person? It's because you're posturing, and every now and then you get exhausted. It's very difficult to maintain. And that's why I'm saying authenticity is calm confidence. So you are able to be yourself and keep growing yourself genuinely in a real way and truthfully, and your growth chart goes like this internally, where it's very real and you don't have to put on a facade every day. And over time, you're not exhausted from putting up an act. That's why I was saying it's sustainable confidence, one that doesn't wear you out as the owner of it. The last point that I wanted to speak to about authenticity, why I think it trumps posturing, is that with authenticity, I think it creates real impact. When you are listening to somebody who's talking from a place of authenticity, or you are being led by a leader who is authentic, the connection that you get from there, the influence that emerges from there is unparalleled. It's very difficult also to match it or to even crush it. You know, where there are people who are trying to pull you down and they're trying to say this, that, the other about you. It becomes very difficult for that to succeed when you are an authentic person, because people have formed a true connection with you. The impact that you have in their lives is real. It's not fake. It's not, it's not a show. It's real. It's deep. People know that you are a genuine person. The things that you are about are real. When you talk to them about a concern you have, it's actually a concern. It's a real concern. When you talk to them about their growth or you work with them on their growth, they know that you actually mean that. When you talk about clients, they know that you actually do care about those clients. So things about you are genuine. When you are engaging with your staff members or your team members, they know where your heart really lies. That makes people truly, genuinely want to follow you. And that's what leadership is. You can't say you're a leader because you were given a position. You're a leader because people within their own hearts and convictions want to follow you. And that's why sometimes even without the topmost position, people still they gravitate towards you. They want to follow you. It's because you are authentic. Everything that you represent is coming from a genuine, real place. And that is where real impact comes from. To me, I genuinely think authenticity will always trump posturing. Before long, people will know, this person, you're putting on a show. There's a quote that I absolutely love by Ralph Emerson, where he was saying, to be yourself in a world that is constantly trying to make you something else is the greatest accomplishment. Whoa, I like that, because the world is constantly putting us under pressure to be what we're not, especially in the advent of social media. Even in our corporate spaces where you're either in business or wherever it is that you are working, you find you're constantly under pressure to show up, or to show up as something that you are not. So for you to be able to show up and genuinely be you, to authentically be you in that kind of environment, that is the greatest accomplishment. And I liked when Jim Rohn said, so he was talking about goals, and you're saying you should aim to be a millionaire, not because you want the money, but because of what it will make you to become a millionaire. I like that, because I like the making of the person, what you genuinely become in the process of becoming. Yeah. So when you are in the be state, it's better than when you are trying to be, or when you're acting, when you're putting on a facade, because then maybe, as I move on to giving you tips from my humble experience on how to own the room authentically. The first one is to know your strengths. When you know exactly what it is that you genuinely bring to the table, then you know your strengths. You are confident about what you're bringing in. Does it mean you don't have weaknesses? No, but you know very well what it is that you're bringing to the table. So when you know your strengths, you see, it's one thing for everybody else to know, because when you don't know what strengths you bring to the table, you can be abused, you can be talked down on, and you can have an imposter syndrome. And that's why earlier we were saying you can have all these achievements, and if you don't know those strengths or those achievements, knowing them in your innermost part, then you're going to show up in the room and still feel like, oh, I'm less than, maybe I shouldn't be in this room, why was I invited, oh my God, and you're shaking at the knees. So that's why I'm saying you must know your strengths. You must know exactly what it is that you bring to the table, what contribution you are making in the bigger picture, whether it's in your company or in the country or in the continent. You must be very aware of what role you're playing in the betterment of things and what strengths you bring to collectively with others push this vision forward. So that is a tip. Know your strengths. Study them, write them. Because culturally, we don't even like to own up to our strengths. It's like when you own up to your strengths, you are, in the African culture, it's like you're being a little bit too pompous. You're not. We have to analyze and know which parts are our weaknesses, which parts are our strengths, so we can see where we play to our strengths to, either make up for some of our weaknesses or where we need to work on our weaknesses. So as much as you need to know where you are weak, you need to absolutely be aware of where you are strong? Are you somebody who's very articulate? Are you somebody who knows who's analytical? You know how to connect dots and see how they relate and how they affect the bigger picture. Are you somebody who's very good with report writing? Are you somebody who's very good with, people, interpersonal skills? Are you somebody who's good with presentations? Like, you need to know your strengths. Are you good with time management? Are you good with self-management? Are you a good leader? What is it that you think makes you a good leader? Write all those strengths down, because when you know your strength and you get into a room, you don't need to be reminded, or you don't need to come in and start posturing and, crushing people's hands with your funny handshakes. Yeah, then that confidence also oozes through you even when you're not trying to posture. As you talk to me from a very calm place, I can already see that authentic confidence coming through you, because you yourself, you don't need to drop a name. You don't need to drop a heavy word. No jargon, no influential name. I can already tell the confidence oozing out of you that this person has got strengths and they belong in this room. The other tip I could give you is be present. When you are in a room and you're talking to some people or to somebody in the room, be in the room. The mistake I've seen from people who lack authenticity is that they're in the room, but their minds are already calculating what they could gain from the people in here, what they want the people in here to think about them, where this is going next. All of that, as it is going on in your head, we can see, because you are not here in the room. So my tip is, be present in the room. Be very aware of what is being discussed. Be very aware of the implications of every decision that is being made. Be aware of the contributions which are being made, and that this is actually moving the conversation somewhere. Just for a minute, forget about how you look, what they think about you, etc. Just try to be objective. Be present and be objective. Later on, you can take all the objective discussions and all the dialogue that's gone on and the takeaways, and you can go and say, how can I, make use of them, or how did I come off a bit less than, etc. You can reflect on it, but by all means, when we are here, be here, because when somebody is on an agenda, we can already tell that you are pushing an agenda, you are not here, and this agenda, when it comes to posturing, is really truly you, and so people are not really gathered for you. So most of the time we gather for our clients, we gather about our investors, we gather about impact in the society, we gather about bigger things than just ourselves and what people think about us. So be present. That's my tip. The next one, which is the tip, share personal stories. I know that we can be guilty of oversharing, but when you share something that is genuinely your experience, people can relate with that and they can connect with you through your experiences. When you drop data, sometimes you're like, the data says this and the data say that, the data say, before you know it, we just know you to be this numbers person and talking about that company did that thing there over there happened like this, and you are almost like encyclopedia. We don't need an encyclopedia. I don't need to know from you all the data about Greece and all the data about London and how those correlate. That is good. It is only impressive for less than 5 minutes. Beyond 5 minutes, I'm trying to get experiences, and this is what I have seen. Sometimes people wonder, why are you so influential? It's not because I'm knowledgeable about everything else. There's Google. People can always Google. Now there's like ChatGPT. People can always get data, but people can't get your genuine experiences. Those ones, you must convey them. Those stories, you must convey them. Let us understand where you are coming from, because then we can even feel your authenticity and judge for ourselves whether this is genuine, it's real. It's going to come from those stories, those experiences you have had. Even when you have a certain bias in a discussion, in a meeting, whatever the story, if you have shared your story, we actually now don't judge your bias. We are aware of your bias. Are we dismissing the bias? No, we can always come back and be objective, but we are more understanding of your bias because of the story that you have shared. So share your stories, share your authentic stories. And if there are parts of your story that you don't want to share, make sure that you think about your stories ahead of time. So when you are in the midst of everybody, you know what it is you want to share in that story, and share that so that at least people know your experiences, your truth, and they can sort of relate with you from that point, rather than for you to come in and start posturing and dropping names of other people who are not you, so that we can sort of associate you with that. That is not impressive. The other one is, I would say, as a tip, practice humility. And I use the word practice it because sometimes I've seen that people who are very humble, but when they're engaging with other people, they don't practice that humility. They can be a bit standoffish, they can be cold, they don't feel like they should go out of their way to say thank you or oh, excuse me. They don't feel like they should do all those things. But when you are in a position of leadership, you are constantly under scrutiny. A lot more. It's like the higher you go in life, the more humble you should actually practically be. So if you were somebody who could just grab something and run, if you are you could get away with it if you're just a normal member of society. But as soon as you are a leader, in any way, shape, or form, when you grab and run, we can notice that you didn't say thank you. So that's why I'm saying practice humility. Being confident doesn't mean that you should now start looking to dominate others, to get into the room and be domineering. In fact, when you are truly confident, you can let others rise and, get from them rather than to pull them down and try to be on top of them, almost literally, So humility has to be practiced. It's something that we must do. For us to own the room, it's not to be stepping on people. It's actually the opposite. When you are very knowledgeable and you are very strong and you know your strengths and you know your contribution, what it is you bring to the room, and yet you can practice humility, that gives you more dominance than trying to talk people down, cut people off when they're talking, and this is how you think you're owning the room. No, you're actually losing the people in the room. And you get offended when somebody says, we wish so-and-so could actually be our leader. And you feel offended because you wanted them to naturally think you should be the leader. No, you are a leader there by position. You're not actually somebody we genuinely want to follow because you're constantly trying to, raise yourself and, you have these delusions of grandeur. So it's important that we practice humility. The other tip that I'll give you genuinely is to listen actively. When somebody else is in the room and is talking, and this is something I reflect on it a lot because I like to listen. I know that I've always been good with talking. I've never struggled with articulating myself, even when I'm scared. When I sit down from a room or from a discussion, from a platform, and I say, I was so nervous, nobody will even tell because I've never struggled with articulation. So the thing that I've been very conscious about from an early age is listening actively. Maybe it's because of my obsession with learning. I like learning from everybody. It doesn't matter whether they're educated or they're younger than me or they're in the village or they're at the airport. I just want to learn from other people. So I have made it a practice to listen actively. And why am I saying this? I'm not saying this to say, I'm the greatest. I'm saying this to say I pick it very easily when I'm with somebody who doesn't listen actively. When you're speaking, you won't even notice that I'm in the room because I'll be listening. I will absorb so much that sometimes because I know how to speak, somebody will be like, V, we know you're analytical. We know that you articulate. Can you bring your analysis to them? Because the whole time I'm just sitting there literally listening to other people. So I then tend to be a bit more aware when somebody's not listening actively. And when you're not listening actively, before long we can see that you're posturing. You want to be the one who comes off to sound more knowledgeable than what you really, than you truly are, and we can immediately pick it because you are now trying to dominate. And then two, you are not giving people an opportunity to finish. They know that you are listening so that you can add your point. You are listening so that you can confirm that you were right. That also doesn't help you own the room. But when you're listening actively to the point where when somebody has said something, you're able to then comment on the parts that they had said. They can see that you are literally in the room. That's how you own the room with authenticity, rather than to try and, as they're speaking, you're thinking about the next point so you can come and crush them or to sound more intelligent. It's not sustainable. You may think you got away with it in that meeting or the other. It's not sustainable. Before long, it's going to come back to crush you because it means you're not listening, you're not learning, you're not empowering anybody. So you're empowering yourself, you're talking all over people, you're not actively listening. It's going to come back to crush you. So that's why I'm saying my tip from my own humble experience is listen actively. Sometimes even the people who are sitting around you who are posturing can also trap themselves, and you can only tell if you are listening actively. So listen actively. also helps you build your points. It also helps you develop your analytical skills. You can listen and say, but that point there didn't make sense because earlier we had said that. I'm sure if I looked in the minutes, I would see the action item saying this and this. Now we're saying the other. Because you are listening actively, you're not caught up in how do I look, how do I sound. When you get to dress up for a meeting, dress well, smell well, comb your hair. We know you're good. When you're at the meeting, be present and listen actively. I hope these tips are working. You can add a few more tips and put them in the comments to help me as well. So let me conclude my discussion with you about the power of being you. So this is sort of what I hope it's a key takeaway from this discussion that we're having, is that true confidence comes from embracing who you are rather than from who you think you should be. Yeah, so stop playing out the thoughts of others and putting them on you, on what they think you're supposed to show up as and who you think you're supposed to be. Show up as you. I've seen it even with women who are in leadership. They think that the men in the room expect them to be men or to be men-like. So they come off a lot more aggressive than they should be. And they think that if just by being a normal person, I'm not saying be excessively feminine or whatever the story, but I am saying that if you're a normal human being, come off as a normal human, embrace who you truly are rather than who you think you should be, perhaps to impress the people who are in the room. So as we go forward, my call, my encouragement is to start practicing authenticity. Let's practice authenticity in every interaction, the big interactions and the small interactions. Let's not see ourselves posturing and putting on an act or a facade. Let's be authentic, because there we can grow. There we can own who we truly are, own our journeys, and enjoy our confidence in the long term, not where we are posturing and it's exhausting us. So let's go practice authenticity. I hope to meet you in my next video. And if you want to watch more videos, please scroll down in my channel. There's a lot more that you can be binging on as you feel your growth. Let's grow together.